Sunshine of My Life by Stevie Wonder. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Our guest is Tony Kushner, the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Tony, I wanted to read a quote of yours from 2010, talking about the reaction by some in the gay rights movement to President Obama's election. You said, the minute they heard that Rick Warren was speaking at the inauguration, LGBT people were saying it's over. He's just like all the others, let alone those who say there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, which I think is glib and profoundly dangerous. What frightens me is that I feel that we're in the process of dismantling the coalition of constituencies that brought Obama to the White House. Your response now on this morning after President Obama made the statement that he supports same-sex marriage.
Well, I mean, Juan, you mentioned, Richard Kim, who I respect enormously, but, immediately, I think he appeared on his blog last night, the states' rights part of Obama's interview meant that, he was, sort of reinforcing one of the particularly catastrophic aspects of the, or difficult and burdensome aspects of the struggle for marriage equality. It didn't surprise me that the president felt that he needed to throw that in. I wish he hadn't felt that he needed to. Again, I don't think anyone could really argue that Obama fails to understand that this is not a states issue and that he's not a states rightist by any means. What worries me now is that it felt to me, and I think the evidence backs it up, that in 2008, part of what got Obama elected was a coalition that had really been forming almost immediately after the 2000 election, and it didn't succeed in getting Kerry elected, but it began the process of building a very strong nationwide network of on-the-ground support for Democratic candidates, and it continued to build after 2004 all the way to 2008. The idea that we're going to be able to sort of grudgingly say, in September or October, okay, I guess it's going to be Obama, so let's, start to support him then. It's not enough. It's going to be a close election. The dangers of a Romney presidency are very real. People should take them. I think people have forgotten 1980 in the sort of way that, even in the early months of 1980, the possibility of a Reagan presidency seemed like, so far-fetched. It was like a Kurt Vonnegut novel. I mean, nobody could believe that that could happen. And then, cut to November. And I think we have to take it seriously. And I keep meeting people in the left, progressive people, who say, well, Obama's going to win. I'll send him a check later. I'll do something later. This is, I think, a life and death struggle, not just for this country, but for the planet.
Well, but Tony, some gay activists have criticized the movement's focus on same-sex marriage, saying it sidelined issues like economic and racial justice. Transgender activist Khalil Cohen spoke on Democracy Now! In February after an appeals court struck down California's same-sex marriage ban, Proposition 8.
Well, I've been active in the movement to established same-sex marriage as a trans activist with Trans Equality LA, which was a group here in LA that was advocating for marriage. But I think my biggest concern is how much resources in the LGBTQ movement have been funneled towards marriage equality alone and away from basic survival that a lot of LGBTQ people still face, such as lack of access to education, healthcare, housing, and criminal justice reform. And these are issues that have really taken a back seat to marriage equality, and that has harmed the most vulnerable members of our community. And whereas marriage equality is what's helping the people who are already doing okay, who are mostly affluent, mostly white, gay, and lesbian folks.
That was transgender activist Khalil Cohen. Your response?
Well, I don't disagree at all. I don't think that the absolute apotheosis of, the most radical implications of LGBT liberation are not the right to serve openly in the military and to marry. But I guess I've become more of an evolutionary than revolutionary leftist, over the course of the last 20 or so years, the powerlessness of the left, our inability to actually do things like stop the bombing of Baghdad, to really begin to do work, serious work, difficult work, to actually do something to stop the terrifying pace of climate change, and to advance our own interests. It's become sort of unbearable to me. We have surrendered effective political power in this country and in some sense around the world to the right.
Has the Occupy movement given you any hope?
Well, immense hope. The lack of a coherent theory behind it was both exciting and a concern. The many manifestations of a newly awakened concern about economic justice all through the Arab Spring. There was a very good article by Joseph Stiglitz about the economic underpinnings of a lot of the unrest in the countries involved in the Arab Spring. I mean, it's wonderful to see. I mean, ultimately, economic inequality and the vast concentration of wealth at the top of the pyramid, the creation of a plutocracy, is one of the most profoundly anti-democratic threats to democracy here and everywhere. So I'm very excited and turned on by movements like Occupy Wall Street. Again, the question is, can progress and genuine radical progress be accomplished through electoral democracy? And I think the answer is yes. Not with coal plants, but people-powered electrical democracy. I think that it's very important to remember that more radical changes were envisioned at the beginnings of the LGBT movement. But I don't think that marriage equality will prevent those from ultimately being attained. And I don't think that it's an accident that we focused on service in the military and marriage. I think that those were the most immediately attainable political goals, and goals that were absolutely attainable within electoral politics. And I think we're seeing the evidence of that now, with a majority of Americans supporting same-sex marriage and the president announcing it. So I think that I mean, the question for us is, how do we envision a path to achieving what we want? How are transgender people going to get justice and full enfranchisement and an end to discrimination and the basic necessities of for survival? And I think the answer is sort of step by step, and that you have to develop a certain kind of patience with the pace of change possible in a democracy. And it doesn't mean that it has to be glacial, but it isn't immediate either, and we have to ask ourselves about the source of our own impatience, and whether, as I've been saying for a while now, it comes with a certain comfort with powerlessness. It's very nice to have no power. You have no responsibility for all the things that go wrong, and you don't have to make terrible compromises. And we've been powerless in a way for a very long time now, and we don't want to just be critics. We also want to be creators.
Tony Kushner, I wanted to ask you